They called me a vulture, said I stole from my dying mother's pockets. That was the first thing they said to me at the funeral. I didn't cry, I didn't argue, I didn't even flinch, because inside my purse was an envelope, signed by my mother, witnessed by her lawyer, sealed with one final truth. I wasn't stealing the estate. I was chosen to protect it. Every dollar, every deed, every decision. She left it all to me, and they had no idea. Until I hit play on the video, in front of the whole family. When people talk about family, they love to paint it in rosy shades, holiday dinners, shared laughter, childhood memories framed in warmth. But let me tell you something no one likes to say out loud. Sometimes family love is just a performance, and the applause stops when the inheritance begins. My name is Amanda Blake. I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, in a modest home with creaky floors and ivy climbing the porch rails. To most people, my family looked picture perfect. A mother who cooked every meal from scratch, a charming older brother named Ryan, and a stylish younger sister, Melissa, who could make any room feel like a fashion runway. And then there was me, the middle child no one really noticed. I was the quiet one, the one who didn't shine, didn't argue, didn't make noise. I worked a quiet office job, rented a small apartment, didn't marry, didn't have kids. To them, I was the failure. But the thing about being quiet is you learn how to listen. You hear the sighs your mother makes when she lowers herself into bed. You notice when her pills start disappearing faster than they should. You're the one she calls not when she wants to talk, but when she needs help. I started driving back to Charleston more and more often. At first, it was once a month, then every weekend. Then, I just stayed. Melissa always had an excuse. Too many campaigns, too many brand deals. Ryan, always on call, always scrubbed in. So it was me who took Mom to her appointments, me who cleaned her bathroom, me who washed her hair. And I never said a word. Not when she cried because her legs wouldn't hold her up. Not when she forgot her own birthday. Not even when she looked me in the eyes and said, "Amanda, promise me. You'll protect what matters." I nodded, and I kept that promise like it was my last job on Earth. The house grew quieter after that. Not because she stopped talking, but because her body did. Mom was fading, and the calls from Ryan and Melissa grew even rarer. Until one day, I got a letter in the mail written in my mother's handwriting. It was sealed, private. Inside was one sentence: "Give this to the lawyer when the time comes." I didn't open it. I didn't ask questions. I just locked it in my drawer and waited. Mom passed away on a Thursday morning in April. The sky was blue, the azaleas were blooming, and all I could feel was silence. I called Ryan, then Melissa. They cried. But I could feel it, the calculation behind every pause, the tension behind every word. By Sunday, Melissa had already posted a memorial photo with a poem that wasn't hers. Ryan called from the hospital and asked about the logistics. They didn't ask how I was, just what was next. I planned the funeral, paid the deposit, wrote the obituary. They showed up that day in black designer clothes, hugged the neighbors, smiled for the photos. But when we got back to the house, they didn't cry. Ryan was pacing in the kitchen, talking about the estate. Melissa poured wine like she owned the place. I sat quietly on the couch, holding the envelope. That night, Ryan said the first cruel thing. "So, are we going to pretend you didn't drain Mom's accounts before she died?" Melissa smirked, sipping Chardonnay. "She was living with you. Who's to say what she really wanted?" I didn't flinch, didn't scream, didn't defend myself. I just walked upstairs and put the envelope back in my drawer. The next morning, I got a call from Mom's lawyer. He asked to meet urgently. I showed up to his office in a gray sweater and jeans, clutching the envelope. He opened it, read it, then looked up at me like I had just dropped a bomb. "She named you," he said, "as executor of everything?" I blinked. He slid a set of keys across the desk. "These are for the safety deposit box. There's a notarized video testimony and the original will, signed, recorded, and filed." I felt my heart crack in two, not because I wanted anything, but because for the first time, I realized she saw me. I was never invisible. She just knew I didn't need to shout to be strong. I left the office quietly, keys in hand, and I knew right then whatever storm was coming, I was ready. Because now, I wasn't just the quiet daughter. I was the executor of the estate, and they had no idea what was coming. The morning after the funeral, the storm began. Ryan showed up at the house with a manila folder and a look on his face like he was preparing for battle. Melissa followed, sunglasses perched on her head despite the overcast sky. Heels clicking on the hardwood floor like she was walking a runway instead of entering our childhood home. They didn't knock, they didn't ask. They walked in like they already owned it. "Let's make this quick," Ryan said, tossing the folder onto the dining table. "We need to inventory the property, divide what's valuable, get this whole thing sorted." I didn't say a word. Melissa was already pulling drawers open, snapping photos of jewelry and dishes with her phone. "That ring Mom wore all the time," she muttered. "It was Grandma's. I'll be taking that." She hadn't even asked if Mom had been buried with it. Ryan started opening cabinets, flipping through drawers, scribbling notes like he was cataloging assets for auction. And me, I stood there, watching the people I called family turn my mother's home into a yard sale. The letter from the lawyer still weighed heavy in my bag. I hadn't told them. Not yet. Because some truths aren't revealed in the heat of an argument. They're delivered with precision. With timing? With power. That afternoon, Ryan brought up the bank accounts. "We need access," he said. "We need to make sure no one's draining anything before probate." I tilted my head. "No one has touched the accounts. They're locked." He gave a dry laugh. "Yeah, except you've had access to everything for months, Amanda. Don't play dumb." Melissa jumped in. "Honestly, it's kind of convenient you were the one taking care of Mom. Makes it easy to hide things, doesn't it?" I looked at her. Really looked. Her lashes were coated in expensive mascara. Her nails were freshly done. She looked like grief had never touched her. And maybe it hadn't, because to them, Mom's death wasn't a heartbreak. It was a transaction. "I haven't taken a single cent," I said quietly. "Oh, please," Ryan said, scoffing. "You always played the martyr." "What's your angle now? Guilt trip us into letting you keep the house?" I didn't respond. Instead, I handed him an envelope. Not the one from Mom, this was from the lawyer. Inside was the formal notification I was the named executor. I watched the blood drain from his face. "What the hell is this?" he muttered, flipping through the pages. Melissa grabbed it from his hands, scanning the document like she could will it to change. "This is fake," she said. "Mom wouldn't do this. She wouldn't just hand it all to you." I stayed calm. "It's been filed with the court," I said. "There's a video, a will, and witnesses. It's all legal. All final." "You're lying!" Melissa shouted. "I'm not," I said, "but you're free to contact the attorney." Ryan's voice dropped to a low snarl. "You always wanted to be the favorite. This is how you do it after she's gone." "No," I said softly. "This isn't about favoritism. It's about trust." They stormed out minutes later, slamming the door behind them. I sat on the couch afterward, the silence thick around me, Mom's scent still faint in the cushions. It didn't feel like victory, not yet. Because I knew them. This was just the beginning. By the end of the week, Melissa had gone live on Instagram. I found out when my phone buzzed with notifications. There she was, crying into the camera, saying how I had cut her off and manipulated Mom, and how she couldn't believe someone could be so cruel right after a funeral. Thousands of likes, comments, sympathy, and hate. Directed at me, "You'd be amazed how quickly strangers will believe a tearful influencer over a silent executor." Ryan posted on Facebook something long, self-righteous, about family betrayal and greed. Photos of Mom, photos of us as kids. He made it look like I had orchestrated a heist instead of following her wishes. Then came the texts. From cousins, from old family friends, from people I hadn't spoken to in years. "Amanda, what's going on? Did you really cut them out? Tell me it's not true." I didn't answer, because I had a job to do. I went to the safety deposit box the next morning. The clerk led me into a small, locked room and handed me a velvet case and a flash drive. I opened the case. Inside was Mom's wedding ring, the one Melissa wanted so badly. I held it for a long moment. Then I opened the flash drive on the clerk's computer. There she was. My mother, dressed in a pale blue cardigan, sitting in her favorite chair, speaking into the camera with a voice that cracked but never broke. "If you're watching this," she said, "it means I'm gone, and Amanda is now the executor of my estate." She paused, breath shaking. "I made this decision because Amanda was there. Not just physically, but emotionally. She saw me. She cared. She never asked for anything, and that's why I trust her with everything." My throat closed. She continued, "To Ryan and Melissa, I love you, but love without respect is hollow. You weren't there when I needed you. Amanda was. I'm not punishing you. I'm simply choosing the person who chose me when no one else did." The screen went black. I left the bank with tears I hadn't let fall at the funeral. That night, I made 3 copies of the video. I mailed one to Ryan, one to Melissa, one to the court, sealed with documentation. No threats, no confrontation. Just the truth. Let them tweet. Let them spin. The story they were telling was already dead. Because now, it wasn't just about me being named in a document. It was about a mother's voice, clear, undeniable, and legally binding. And soon the world would hear it too. I thought the video would end it. I thought once they saw her face, heard her voice, they'd back off. But I underestimated what people become when pride is cracked and there's money on the table. Ryan didn't respond for 3 days. Then came the letter from his attorney. A formal request for reconsideration of executor appointment, dressed in legal language, but I saw through it. It was a demand, a challenge, a threat wrapped in etiquette. Melissa followed suit, tagging me in a tear-stained video that somehow managed to include both her highlighter palette and a product placement for grief journals. She called it injustice. Said I manipulated our mother while she was mentally declining. I read the comments. Hundreds of people believed her. Strangers called me greedy, called me a thief, told me I should be ashamed. And yet, despite all their noise, they didn't know what I knew. The documents were ironclad. Mom had done this carefully, with a lawyer, with witnesses, with timestamps, with 2 copies filed, one privately held and one already submitted to probate court. Still, the accusations hurt. Not because they might ruin my image, but because these were the same people who forgot Mom's birthday, who never called unless they needed something, who left me alone when she stopped remembering my name. I went quiet, didn't post, didn't respond. Instead, I worked, because being executor isn't glamorous. It's not diamonds and designer bags. It's paperwork. It's calls with financial institutions, coordinating debts, understanding estate taxes. It's returning cable boxes, sorting medications, canceling utilities. It's cleaning out closets where grief hides between old sweaters. But most of all, it's about honoring the wishes of someone who trusted you beyond blood. And I took that seriously. I started sorting Mom's things room by room. The attic was the hardest. Boxes of old journals, letters, receipts from my childhood drawings she'd framed but never hung. A pair of ballet shoes Melissa wore once and quit. A stethoscope Ryan left behind when he went to med school. I cataloged everything, set aside personal items for donation, stored heirlooms, photographed valuables. I left nothing to chance, because I knew Ryan would come sniffing. And he did. One rainy afternoon, I heard a knock, sharp, impatient. I opened the door. There he stood. No umbrella, just anger soaking through his expensive coat. "We need to talk," he said. I let him in. He didn't sit. "Look, Amanda, this whole thing, it's ridiculous. You're not equipped for this. This estate is complicated, financially, legally, emotionally. Let's not make a mess of Mom's memory." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean the memory you forgot for 3 years? He flinched. "You want a piece?" I asked. "Just say it. You want control. You want to rewrite what's already sealed." He scowled. She wasn't in her right mind. She was on medication. "There are neuroevaluations." I said, "Signed by 2 doctors. Done within a week of the video and the will." He ran a hand through his hair. Then, for a brief moment, he softened. "Look, I get it. Maybe she felt close to you at the end. Maybe she thought she owed you, but this is too much." I looked him dead in the eye. "No, what's too much is pretending she meant nothing just because you weren't the center of her world anymore." His face twisted. "You always wanted this. Some moral high ground. Well, enjoy your little throne, Amanda, but don't expect anyone to respect it." And then he walked out. Melissa was next. She didn't knock. She just showed up one night like glitter in a storm flashing lashes, fake tears, and a voice too rehearsed. I just wanted to talk. She said. I stood in the doorway. About what? Closure. She stepped in without waiting for an answer. Sat on the couch like she hadn't called me manipulative online to 200,000 followers. You know, she started, I think this whole thing could have been handled differently. Privately. With Grace. Grace, I said. Yes, I mean, posting that video was cruel. I stared at her. I didn't post it. She blinked. It was filed. With the court. Someone leaked it. Probably a clerk. Not me. She looked away. Look, she said finally. What do you want, Amanda? You want to keep everything fine, but don't ruin our names doing it. I laughed then. Quiet, bitter. You ruined your own name, Melissa. I just followed Mom's instructions. She stood up, eyes flashing. You'll regret this. No, I said, but you might? She slammed the door on the way out. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with the will in front of me. And I cried. Not because I was overwhelmed, but because being right doesn't feel like winning when it's against your own blood. The next morning, I submitted the inventory to the probate court. Assets, debts, property, all in order. Then I sent one last email to the lawyer, requesting a formal hearing to finalize the will's execution. I knew Ryan and Melissa would be there, and I was ready. Because truth may be slow, but it always shows up dressed in facts, signed in ink, and spoken by the one voice that still mattered. Mom's. The courthouse smelled like old paper and dusted secrets. It was a Wednesday gray skies, soft drizzle on the pavement outside, the kind of day that felt like it held its breath. I sat alone on the long wooden bench outside courtroom B. My fingers traced the edge of the envelope in my lap. Inside were the final documents. Every file, every piece of evidence, notarized and bulletproof. My name was printed on every page executor of the estate of Marlene Blake. I didn't dress to impress. Just a navy blazer, soft blouse, hair pulled back. Because this wasn't about appearances. This was about truth. At exactly 10:00 a.m., the courtroom doors opened. I stepped inside and sat in the front row. Mom's photo sat on the desk beside the judge, a small courtesy, a reminder that this wasn't just paperwork. It was a person's last will. Ryan walked in 5 minutes late. Suit sharp, eyes sharper. Melissa followed in a storm of perfume and entitlement, flanked by a lawyer who looked like he billed emotions by the hour. They didn't look at me, didn't nod, didn't blink. The judge took her seat. She was older, maybe mid-60s, her tone brisk but not cold. We're here to finalize the execution of the will of Marlene Blake. Executor Amanda Blake is present, as are contesting parties Ryan Blake and Melissa Blake. Papers shuffled, chairs creaked, and then the lawyer Melissa hired stood up. He launched into a narrative, rich with dramatics and zero substance. My client believes the decedent may have been under undue influence at the time of the revised will. The circumstances under which the executor gained power raise questions. I didn't interrupt, because I didn't need to. The judge raised a hand. Is there medical evidence of diminished capacity? The lawyer fumbled. Well, not directly, Your Honor, but were there objections filed prior to this hearing? No, but public response has been, this court doesn't litigate based on Instagram. A quiet laugh from the clerk's table. Melissa's face turned red. Ryan stared straight ahead. Then my lawyer stood. Your Honor, we've provided all necessary documentation, including psychiatric evaluations from 2 independent professionals, recorded video testimony, and a digital file of the original will, all submitted prior to the hearing. The judge nodded. I've reviewed the files. The evidence is clear. The decedent's intent was deliberate and legally sound. Silence. I didn't breathe. The gavel struck once. This court formally recognizes Amanda Blake as the sole executor. The will shall be executed as filed. This matter is closed. Melissa's chair screeched against the floor as she stood up. This is insane. The judge didn't even look up. Ryan clenched his jaw but said nothing. They stormed out before I did. I stayed seated. The judge glanced over and gave a small, tired smile. Your mother was very precise. That's rare. I nodded. She was a woman who noticed everything, even when no one thought she did. Outside, the rain had stopped. I stepped down the courthouse stairs and let the wind clear the weight from my shoulders. I wasn't victorious. I was just free. Free to honor her without interruption. Free to breathe. free to begin the final part of this strange, lonely, sacred duty. Over the next few weeks, I finalized every part of the estate. The house was placed in my name, but I didn't sell it. I restored its soft paint, new floors, Mom's garden replanted just the way she liked. The stock investments were diversified, not liquidated. And her handwritten journals, every last one, were preserved, bound, and donated to the Charleston Women's History Archive, where her stories would live beyond bloodlines. I sent Ryan and Melissa each a letter, not petty, not bitter, just simple. A breakdown of what Mom left behind, a note that her decision was not about love, but about trust. And a final sentence, you may not agree with her choice, but it was hers to make. No reply. I didn't expect one. But that silence, it didn't hurt like before, because I was no longer begging to be seen. I was fulfilling a promise. And then, something unexpected happened. One afternoon, I received a package. No return address? Inside was a photo. Me and Mom. I was 10. She was holding a cake we made together. Our faces were messy with frosting. On the back, in delicate handwriting, she always saw you, even when we didn't. No signature, but I knew it was Ryan. For the first time in years, I cried not out of grief, but relief. Because even if they never said it deep down, they knew I wasn't the greedy one. I was the daughter who stayed, the one who listened, the one who was trusted. And when all the noise faded, truth remained. That was all I ever wanted. The morning the estate officially closed, I woke up to silence. Not the kind that feels empty. The kind that feels earned. I brewed coffee, sat by the window, and watched the light stretch across the floorboards of Mom's house, the same floorboards I used to tiptoe across in my socks as a child. The same floorboards Melissa once claimed were too creaky for modern resale. Now they felt sacred. The paperwork was done. The accounts settled. The house was mine, not just legally, but spiritually. I didn't keep it for the value. I kept it because it had her voice in its walls. And now that voice could finally rest. But closure is rarely quiet. A few days later, Melissa posted one final video. She cried, again, claimed I bullied her, claimed I weaponized the law, claimed I tore the family apart. But this time, the comments were different. People started asking questions. Why wasn't she there during the final days? Why did Amanda have all the legal documents? Why hadn't she responded to the court ruling? Truth doesn't go viral, but it lingers. And it changes the air around a lie. That same week, Ryan called. He didn't leave a voicemail. He just said, "Can we meet?" We sat outside a small cafe near the medical campus. I didn't dress up. He didn't either. For once, it felt like two siblings sitting down, not opponents across a battlefield. He sipped his coffee slowly, then looked up. "I've been angry," he said. "At Mom, at myself, mostly at you. Because you did what I didn't." I didn't interrupt. I told myself you manipulated her, that you schemed. But the truth is, I didn't want to see her like that. I couldn't. You did. He paused. "Do you hate me?" I looked at him, really looked. And I saw my brother, not the surgeon, not the prideful man, but the boy who used to chase me in the backyard with water balloons. "No," I said, "but I was hurt. You disappeared. And then you blamed me for showing up." He nodded. "I'm sorry. I didn't say it's okay. Because it wasn't. But some things don't need a bow to be resolved. They just need to be acknowledged." He reached into his jacket and handed me an envelope. Inside was a photo. Mom in her garden, smiling, sunlight in her hair. She mailed it to me 6 months before she died. He said, "I didn't open it until after the ruling." On the back, she wrote, "Be kind to Amanda. She sees the world clearly, even when we refuse to." I swallowed hard. "I think she knew we'd fall apart," he said. "But she trusted you to hold the pieces." We sat in silence after that. Not heavy, not awkward, just quiet. When we left, he hugged me. The kind of hug that doesn't fix everything, but says I'm trying. Melissa never reached out. But months later, I heard she moved to Atlanta. Her brand deals fizzled. She was living with someone new, someone older, wealthy, detached. I don't wish her harm, but I no longer carry her weight. I've learned that letting go isn't cruelty. Sometimes it's survival. I kept living, slowly, softly. I turned Mom's bedroom into a reading room, hung her favorite prints on the walls, donated the rest of her things to women's shelters across the state. And then I did one last thing. I started a scholarship in her name, the Marlene Blake Foundation for Silent Strength. It's for daughters who show up, not the loudest, not the flashiest, just the ones who stay. Every year, a woman will walk across a stage and receive a check that says, "You are seen." Because I wish someone had told me that sooner. One afternoon, I stood by Mom's headstone. Fresh lilies, her favorite. I knelt down and whispered, "It's done." The air felt warmer. I didn't cry. I didn't need to, because this wasn't the end. This was the beginning of peace, of legacy, of finally becoming someone who didn't just survive the storm, but rewrote what it meant to stand in it and walk away whole.